Hello again, Kat Rambo here, your medicine woman. Today we're going to take the rainy day inside to make some craft projects. Everything I make is created through a process of prayer and meditation and is completed with its own unique intention. Some projects come to me through prayer or meditation or dream. Some are born of necessity, and some are requested. Sometimes someone wants something specific, so they'll tell me what intention, what ingredients, what components they want it to have, and what they want the final thing to look like. Sometimes it's open to inspiration, where someone will ask for a specific type of item and say, please make me whatever it is that you feel I need, which I love. And sometimes I just feel inspired and want to create, and I realize that it's for someone later who hasn't yet seen it. So today I'm actually making a gift. I'm going to be beading a rosette for a necklace. A rosette is a traditional Native American beaded object. It can be put on regalia or decorate bags or made into jewelry. So that's what we're going to do today, is make a necklace. So let's get started. So hopefully this camera is clear enough that we can see everything going on. So first things first, let's talk materials. Obviously, first thing you need is beads. I highly recommend buying a hank, that's what this is, rather than beads in a can from a craft store like this. They tend to be more consistent, and when you're doing a project like this where all the beads need to interlock together, consistency is important. So first you're going to choose a background color. That's going to be this beautiful sky blue. And then we're going to choose colors for the points. Now we're going to start with a very simple design that will help you keep your pattern straight. It's going to be a round project, so you want a background field color and then the points that are going to make up the rosette pattern, the star pattern. So these are size 6 beads. They're not extremely small, and I chose them for this project so that you could see them clearly. These are size 10, so look how tiny these are. You can barely even see them on the camera. The difference in size is going to obviously change the difference in the thread that you use. This is what I'm using. I like this brand. People have their own preferences. This is a bonded nylon, so that way it doesn't tangle up very easily. It's got a lot of structural integrity. If it gets wet, it's not going to dissolve away. I use this because, as far as my experience reflects, this provides the best durability, and I want the things that I make to last. So this one in particular is a 0.008 inch because we're in America, or a 0.2 millimeter. This is the heavier version. There is a 0.06 or the 0.15 millimeter, different colors. That's going to be a smaller thread, which is interesting because with the beads, the larger the size number, the smaller the bead, like a gauge, but with thread, then you're looking at the diameter of the thread there, so the larger the number, the larger the thread. I'm going to use this one in particular because I don't intend to be doing a whole lot of passing through the beads. It is a bead or a thread heavy project, but I want it to have a lot of structural integrity so it holds up. So first, you want to realize that with this project, it's a math project. 8 is your magic number here. So we're going to string our first 8 beads, and we're going to go in a circle. So in order to make that happen, take your beads and tie a regular square knot around them and tie them into a circle. Now the first few rows are going to look a squiggly, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, you're doing it right. So I like a double knot here to hold everything together, sometimes 3, depending on what your thread looks like it's doing. If it looks kind of squirrely, give it another knot. If it looks fine, then don't. You know, this is the foundation of your project though, so you really want to keep it nice and secure. I'm going to give it a 3rd one. I like this heavy thread, but sometimes it doesn't crimp as much as I would like. All right. So in order to, you see how like wobbly it looks, right? So in order to create more stability, you're going to take your, I recommend using a short needle for this type of project. I don't know if you can see that, because a long needle makes it a lot harder to get it in and out of the beads. So pass through your beads again to finish your loop. Now if you use a really short piece of thread, you're going to have to constantly go back in and out of your project, and I'll show you how to do that to rethread. But if you use a really long thread, then you're constantly dragging it through your project. It becomes a little bit more troublesome, and then more prone to knotting and confusion. So I'm going to pass over where that knot is and go back through another couple beads just to give it a little more support, and I like that shape better. So it's still not going to look perfectly around to you. That's okay. So congratulations, you've got your first row. Remember, the number here that you're looking for is the number 8. So each row we're going to add 8 more beads, which doesn't have to be complicated. You're actually going to use the pattern to remind you when to add a bead. So because we already have 8 beads and we need to add 8 beads, each bead is going to get 2 beads added to it. So the beads are sort of going to stack one on top of the other unless you're adding one, in which case it'll be 2 on top of 1. So this second row is going to feel like the most complicated. I promise it gets easier after that. So face your pattern, pick a direction. So you see where the thread is coming out here of the side of this bead here. Now you want to either face the project away from you so the thread is moving away from you, or towards yourself so the thread is facing you. I'm going to face it away from me. Remember here to be consistent throughout your project. Either way, whatever makes you happy, be consistent. So I'm going to start with it facing away from me, and that's how I'm going to show you how to do this. Oh, that lighting is a lot better. Okay, so we're going to add 2 beads here. So face the thread away from you, take your needle and thread your 2 beads. Now, this is bead 0, the one here that the thread is sticking out of. The next bead here is the one that we're going to get into. So through that next bead, face the needle toward yourself. Now you see why it's important to recognize which way your thread's facing. And string it through. This stitch is the foundation of any peyote stitch project. So now you see you have your 2 little mouse ears, your beads in a wobbly, awkward position right on top. So you're going to take your needle and thread through away from you the 2 beads you just added. So you're going to basically create a loop through them. Now if you thread them too tight, then the project will ripple. If you thread them too loose, then it'll wobble. So find that balance, that harmony that projects remind us to bring into our lives. So they look awkward and they look wobbly, and that's normal. This second row is going to be weird, and that's okay. So now we're going to add 2 more beads of your background color. This is for your second hoop. And with your thread facing away from you as before, you're going to find the next bead in the list here on the row. So this one has this thread sticking through it from the beads we just added. So that's bead 0 now. So bead 1 is going to be the next one. So with the thread facing away from you, go through the bead on the first row, going towards you. Be careful not to hoop through any of the threads that are all over the place right now. And then of course, back through the 2 beads you just added. So it's starting to look a little bit more organized now, just in that amount of space. So I'm going to finish this hoop with you, or you can fast forward, whatever makes you happy. So again, face the thread away from you. Find your next bead in the bottom row. Pass through it towards you, and then back again through the beads you just added away from you. See the pattern here? So you're facing the thread away from you, passing the needle towards you, and then stitching back through away from you. So it's a back and forth motion here. So add your next 2 beads, find the next one on the list, see where the thread passes through here, and you want to use the next one. So stitch through the next bead towards you, and then pass through the beads away from you. You may notice that they bunch up or they do weird things. That's okay. Just sort of pinch them, hold them together, whatever it is you got to do to keep them from being squiggly. See how we're sort of forming circles now. Doesn't that look good? So the next one, add 2 beads to your needle. Face the thread away from you. Stitch through your next bead towards you. Pass through the beads you just added away from you. Look guys, we're almost there, back to where we started. Make sure along the way you sort of strengthen it up a little bit by creating a little tension. You want to keep enough tension to keep the design forming itself, but not so much that it creates ripples. We're almost back to where we started, so we've got a couple more. Add 2 more beads to your needle. Can you hear my cat howling? He wants to come in. He loves craft projects. So with the thread facing away from you, stitch through the bead that toward yourself. Look at this thread got involved here. Away. And then through, back through the ones you just added. See how they have a tendency to bunch up and get confused? Just pinch them and straighten them out. I'm just going to hold this thread here down. So this is getting a lot easier to hold too. Hopefully it's easier for you to see. So thread needle a couple more beads. With the thread facing away from you, stitch the next bead toward you. And then pass back through the beads you just added away from you. Looks like we have one more left. You can see where they're sort of bunching up here. These 2 here belong to this bead underneath it, so we have one more. Almost done with this hoop. So 2 more beads. Face the thread in one direction. Stitch in the other, and then pass back through. Now you're going to notice that you have 8 beads in one hoop and 16 in the other, and that's exactly what we're looking for. But don't they look all strange and awkward and bunched up? That's normal. In order to create the nice shape we're looking for, we're actually going to keep sewing through the hoop we just created. So where the thread comes out, go into the next couple beads and pull it through. There we go. That's also going to give you a nice structural integrity to the whole system too. So some people will like to pass through the whole hoop again. Because I'm using a heavier gauge thread, I may do a few more beads, but probably not the whole hoop. These are nice fat beads, maybe I will. This core part here is the foundation of your whole project, so you want it to be nice and strong. So you've got that nice hoop shape, that's perfect. So try not to come out exactly where your other joints are, which creates pulling and tension on a certain spot within your project. So try and find a different place to come out with your thread next. Hello, kitty. Now that these first 2 hoops are done, we're starting to look like an actual circle going on here. And I did actually go back through that second hoop a couple of times to give me that nice strong circular integrity that I'm looking for. Next we're going to start adding the points to the star shape, and we'll see how that rule of 8 is going to pattern out through the rest of the design. Through this process there's also some sage that I'm burning here. Sage is a North American indigenous tradition, a plant in the mint and astringent family that is supposed to purify any negative energy, and it also science has shown actually that it does have some antibacterial and cleansing properties. So it is an old tradition to burn it in the space of a sick person, but as it turns out there may be some actual scientific use for that as well. I love where modern traditions or modern sciences blend with our ancient traditions. So I like to take this time also to remember the intention here is this foundation, this core has been established. What is the point of this piece? You know, these colors represent the medicine wheel. That's the effect of the piece that I'm making here. If you want a video about what the medicine wheel is and what it means, then I would love to do a video about symbolism. For now, just suffice to say that it represents balance and spirit and integration, and each of the four corners has their own significance, you know, the cardinal directions, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual realms, the different elements and what they represent for us in our living. So I'm going to use these four colors to create our 8 points. So the intention of this piece is integration, is, you know, spirituality, connection, and I wanted that to be part of the piece. So I'm going to continue to meditate and pray on that idea as I continue to make it also. So our rule of 8s dictates that we need to add 8 beads. To create simplicity for ourselves, we're going to use 8 points in our star. You see the trend here? So first we're going to start by adding one of our field colors, and then we're going to add one of our point colors. I'm going to start with white, I think. So as before, face the thread away from you. Find bead 0 the thread is coming out of, and then locate bead 1, stitch back towards yourself in the opposite direction through bead 1. And then pass back through the 2 beads you just made. That's going to arrive you coming out on this next level that we've created. Again, you notice how they're looking a little squirrely? That's okay. Sort of try and center them as best you can and tighten them up without creating too much tension. So we're now going to add our next bead, which is a field color, our background, just 1. So where this one's coming out, find the next one, stitch back through this next bead towards yourself, and then back out through the bead you just made. So remember how we started with 8 beads, and then if we add 2 to each, we have 16 beads. So now up here, when we need to add 8 beads, we know that every other bead needs to get 2. So we started here with this set of 2 here, and then we added 1. So then our next set is also going to contain 2. So in the same order in which you added the beads before, first a field color, then a point color, because the other way it won't match, it won't fit, then go through your regular pattern again, stitch through one direction, go back through the beads you added the other direction, straighten everybody up. You're going to start adding your point colors this way. So then the next one, because you're doing every other one is 1 and then every other one is 2, gets 1 bead. I'm sure you've got the stitch pattern by now. If not, then leave a comment and I'll see if I can find a way to be more clear. Perhaps a better camera, huh? And then what's next, right? So you got 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, so 2. So in the same order, first the field color, then your next color, and we're going to go with yellow now for the east. You know your pattern. Stitch through in one direction, pass back through in the other. Hold on and straighten everybody out. So you're noticing a pattern here. You can have 1 point color and then 2 field colors and then a point color and 2 field colors. So I'm going to continue to go around this hoop and show you what it looks like at the end, and then we'll move on to the next row. So now that you've come out with this last bead here, and it should be a single bead since we started with a set of 2, remember to go back through your design and create that nice, strong, connected hoop shape. Make sure that you're passing through the beads from the beginning of the sequence on this row. Great! Row number 3, congratulations! So now as we step up to row 4, we're going to recognize that the math part starts to become a little bit more cumbersome. So we're going to skip it and recognize that now that we have 8 points in our pattern, if we need to add 8 beads, we know exactly where those beads are going to be added. We can stop counting the number of beads in each row. So let's move on to the next row. So you know how this goes now. You see where the bead's coming out? Right above one of these points. So now we're going to add 2 beads of that color right on top of the first one. So pass through the bead of the point and then pass back through the ones you added. Make sure to straighten them out because sometimes the thread will twist. If you find that your thread is getting very twisty, just run your fingers down along it and it'll help straighten out the curl. So then you're going to add 1 field color, and then another field color, and then when you get to the next point, then you're going to add 2 of that color. So I'm going to complete that one and I'll see you when it's done. So I've suddenly realized we've come to a crucial point of our project. The thread is too short. So in order to hide this thread and then add a new thread, it's not a complicated process. So you're going to take this needle with the short thread and go down through the bead you just came out of, maybe 2 if you like. And then you're going to turn around. Let's go through 3 since that's where we added 2 beads. And then turn around and go down again. And we're going to weave back and forth through the project to tighten that bead down, or the thread down. Now, the truth is, you don't have to do this maybe as much as you think you do. You know, it will stay tight. Just make sure you get a few turns in there. Go back up if you like. This is also a reminder of why it's important not to make your thread too much bigger than the diameter of your bead, because you do need to pass through a few times. And then when you feel like you've gone through enough times to make it secure, you're done with it. Then you're going to add a thread back to your needle, and exactly the same way you're going to weave back and forth through your project. If you follow the thread lines that are already there, it'll stay neat. And then you're going to pop out right where you left off. So now that you're right where you left off, with the thread sticking out of the last beads that you added, it's time to continue your pattern. Pretty sure you know what to do by now. You add 1 field bead on top of every field bead, and then right on top of the point that you add 2 more. So that's going to give you a total of 8 beads added to this row. You see how the rule of 8 pattern is starting to work out. Because of the type of pattern I'm making, each time I pass around and come upon a point, a medicine wheel color here, I'm going to meditate a little bit on what that color represents and how we can use that wisdom in our lives. So I'm going to go around this hoop and I'll see you on the other side. Now remember that once you get to the end of your pattern, to pass back through the beginning by just a few beads, and you'll see what would look nice, you know. You may notice that, yes, this pattern requires some thinking, but once you get yourself into a sort of meditative state, it's very relaxing. So there we go, hoop number 4. So now we're going to move on to the next step. So be aware wherever you're going to add your extra bead, you know, that stack of 2 on each row, that you're going to create a situation where the beads are slightly cramped and will sort of fan out. So let's take advantage of that element and add our bead on top of where our points are going to be, so it'll help them spread out and create a nice fan shape. So for the next step, we're out here right in front of one of our points. So we're going to start by adding our 2 beads right on top of one of these, and then we're going to do a single one after that. So we're going to end up with 3 where the point is going to start widening. You'll notice that each one of these will still continue to have 1 each, and then we'll go around the pattern from there. I'll see you at the other side of the hoop. So I switched perspective on you. I don't know if you like this better or not, but I do. So leave me a comment and tell me if you think this works for you or doesn't work for you, and let me know. So remember at the end to go through a few of the beads in the last row just to get that good structure and also to make it nice and even. So I think I'm going to do one more expanding row, and then we're going to talk about how to start reducing. So in order to keep that nice balance, I'm going to add my 2 beads on top of the middle bead on this inside each of the points. So I'm going to do that, and we'll get back to you when that's done. Okay, so a couple of points on what's going on here so far. We've got our points about as wide as I think I would like them. See our nice straight field lines and our nice fanned out points. If you find that the loose hairs from weaving new threads in and out are becoming a little out of control, then feel free to trim them down close to the beads. At the end, some beaders like to take a lighter to if they're using nylon threads, to where the beads were, or where the threads were woven in and out, because it sort of melts them together. Be careful though, because you don't want to melt your whole project and have it fall apart on you after all this effort. So be gentle with that process, but if you see them where they're sticking up just a little bit, it is a good idea to melt them together. That way you're going to ensure that they're never going to pop out. But even if they do, because you weave them in and out enough times, they'll stay secure. And when your project is finished, I mean, I presume you won't be playing basketball with it, so it should hold together nice and flat, whether you decide to put backing on it or not. Now, another note on beads. Oh, that's much better. Another note on beads. Buy enough at once for a whole project, because even when you buy them from a reputable bead producer, occasionally different lots will have slightly different colors, and though I think that's part of their natural beauty, each one's a little different, they are going to make your project look a little funky if you want it to be consistent. So also you'll notice that even when you buy nice beads, some of them will be a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, and you start to notice where you can add a little bit bigger one here, or where there's a little space, or where everything's crunched together, maybe you'd add a smaller one. And that's where the art part is, you know, making it lovely based on what it is that you want, you know. So at this point, I'm going to start with the reducing. So we still have to add 2 beads in 8 places for the next hoop. However, that starts getting a little awkward because we want the fan shape to fan downward now towards a point, you know, on the other side here. So how do we do that? Could we just add an extra bead to the blue fields? Sure, but it's not going to create that contraction that you're looking for, and then you're still going to have 4 beads on top here. So how can we reduce and add? So this is going to start to look a little complicated. So what we're going to do here, the pattern is add 1, reduce 1, add 1. So there's going to be 2 places where you add 2 beads, but in the middle we're actually going to take 2 and stack only 1 on top. So the equivalent outcome is going to be the addition of 2 beads, even though it feels like we're adding 2, subtracting 1, and adding 2. So I'll show you so that it makes a little bit more sense. We're going to start here where we popped out right on the red side. So you see where we have 4 beads here? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take these middle 2 here and combine them and only stack 1 bead on top. So the first one here on this little red set is where we're going to add 2 originally, and then we're going to add 2 again on the end. So we want the outcome of 3 beads here. So if we're contracting this down to 1, we only need 1 red bead here and 1 blue bead. So first we're going to add a blue bead. because that's what's before. In whatever order you put them on the needle, that's the order they're going to appear in your design. And then 1 red. And then we're going to do just like we did before in the method of adding beads. So we're just going to stitch underneath. See how they pop up in order like that? And then go back through them just like we did before. Look a little squirrely. And then for our next one, we're going to add only 1 red bead, but we're going to take these 2 here in the middle and lace them together. So when you go towards yourself with your needle, you're actually going to go through both of these here. You see that? So they're going to scrunch up together so this one can stack on top in a sort of a pyramid shape and then pass through as before. And I know it looks a little squirrely now, but what's going to happen when the pattern starts filling in is that these will sort of crunch up a little bit together. So now we're going to add onto the needle 1 red and then 1 field color, 1 blue. And then we're going to go onto this outside bead here. So just as before, towards yourself, and then back away from yourself through the ones you added. Tighten them up the best you can. They're going to be a little squirrely at first, but you can see the way that they'll eventually stack up on top of each other. The mechanism here is to make sure that the 1 bead is right on top of those 2, and it's not so tight that it presses everything together. You still want them to have a little bit of space to move around a little bit. You know, as you've seen, the more beads you add, the more structure and order they all sort of have together. So we're going to carry on with our regular pattern, adding 1 field bead on top of each of these blue ones, and then this next pattern. So I'm going to do all of these here with you so you can see what that's going to look like, because I know that can feel a little bit complicated at first. So 1 bead here, come on, and then 1 bead here, and then now we're back onto our next point. So here we are again with our 4 beads. Okay, so on the outside one, we're going to add a field bead because that's what's behind it, and a point color, and we're going to add it onto this outside point bead here, the first red one in this case, and then pass back through them both just as though we were adding a bead anywhere else. So that's +2. And then for the center 2 red beads here, we're going to add just the 1 and pass through our stitch the 2 in the middle and create that little pyramid shape with the single red bead on top of them, and then of course pass back through to complete your stitch. And then we're back to the next outside red bead. So we're going to add a red bead first, and then the next color is the field color, so then a blue bead onto the needle, pass through that last red one, and then complete the stitch. Thread is bunching up. There we go. So you see here what's going on. You're going to still get that nice symmetrical fan shape, and you're also going to be expanding the field color and reducing the point color without having everything all bunch up and get weird. So you can try it if you want by just adding beads here in the middle, but you're going to notice that you're not going to get that nice symmetry, and you're going to get places where it's bunched up. And I know it looks a little awkward right now here too, especially in the beginning, but as we go around you'll see that you will achieve a little bit more structure like the rest of the piece. So I'll do one more for you to get the point, literally I suppose in this case. So to add 1 field on top of each of these other field beads, background color, whatever you want to call. And one more time. So now we're looking at yellow. So the color behind it is the background shade, so we're going to add a blue, and then on the needle we're going to poke through a yellow one. So through the first yellow bead you're going to add the 2, And then through the next middle 2 yellow beads, you're going to add 1. So you go through both of those middle yellow beads to add 1 right on top in that little pyramid shape. And then next you're going to poke through a yellow one, and then the next color, which is your background, the blue, and then go through that last yellow one right there. What happened? My bead fell off. This does happen. There we go. Better. So you'll see how they sort of reduce down in shape with that nice symmetry that's going to make the finished product look so lovely. So another point about reducing, you know, we're adding to take away to add again, and that's something that we do in our life too. So as we're contemplating while we're creating here, think about in your life what it is where you'd like to add and subtract. And that a benefit of this color pattern is that each of these shades has a different meaning. So as we're looking at each of these colors, the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical, I get to think about what it is that would be good to add in order to subtract, in order to add, to create more symmetry and more balance in each of these arenas of my life. And if I'm making this for someone in their life, what would I think that I would feel would be empowering for them? Or to meditate on the idea of that in the first place. What would it look like to be empowered enough to take something away, to add more, you know, in that facet of your being? So I'm going to go through all of this here, and I'll probably finish up the points, maybe just this round, and then I'll show you what the next one looks like. So if you've made it this far, then congratulations, you're past the halfway point. And now we're going to take our next step to reducing. This one's going to look a little bit more like our last method. So we're popped out right here in front of these red ones. And we have 3, and now we want 2, just like down here. So in order to do that, it's actually going to be pretty simple. We're going to add 2 on the middle bead. And then on the outside colored beads, we're going to add the field color, and that's going to widen the field background color and make that nice shape. So remember when you're adding these 2 beads not to string them together so tightly that they get all scrunched together and you don't get that nice fan shape. So we're going to start here on the outside of this red one with a blue background color, just as we have done in the past. Stitch towards you, pass through away from you, and then now we're here facing the middle of the red color. So we're going to add 2. Right on top here. And then give them a little wiggle room. And then we're going to add that background color. So each of the next background beads are going to have a single one on top of that, and because it'll help you see it better, I'm going to talk you through the yellow section. So did you think about what it is that you would like to take away from your life or add for your life, or in a way that has balance? It's easy to see that, you know, when we take things away, we give space for adding more of what we really want to see. But what about in adding? What does that take away? You know, when we take away books off the bookshelf, we give ourselves space to add new books that will bring us more joy and more learning and keep us excited. And sometimes when we add things, we also take things away. When we add certain disciplines to our life, we can take away what it is that disrupts us. So when we add meditation, we get to remove frustration. And when we add more joy, we get to remove fear. And faith is always something good to add. And so think about what it is that you can add that would also, in its adding, take away. You know, this is a good thing. We destroy what it is that we think we know about ourselves in order to become what we really are. So here we are at the next yellow one. We're going to, on the outside yellow bead here, we're going to add a background bead. And then at the middle yellow bead, we will add 2. So you see how this, what complicated originally sounded like math, you know, it turned into just following your pattern. I highly recommend sticking to a simple pattern. And of course the background bead right on top of the last colored point bead. So then the rest of these will continue as per your pattern, and we'll follow up with that when we finish this hoop. So here we are, getting kind of close to the ends of our points now. This is also a really good opportunity to check your tension. If your piece is sort of buckling up and turning into a dish shape, then relax, let go a little bit. If you find that it's very wobbly and doesn't have a lot of structure, then perhaps it is because you need to get a grip and observe where you could add a little bit more focus. So now you may have noticed that we're down to 2 beads on the end of each of our points. So now that that's where we're at, we need to figure out how to subtract again. I'm sure you figured that out since you know that you're going to draw these 2 together to create that pyramid shape on top. So we're in front of the yellow again, and we're going to start with the add, then subtract, then add method. So start with the first color, which is the background color, blue. And we're going to add 2 blues. Now I have seen some pieces before where this was still too much bunching up, so they actually added somewhere in here the 2 blues to create a little more even spacing. But I have noticed that I like to add them next to each other because otherwise I get a little gapping. And this of course is going to depend on your beads, your style and everything, but you see how when you add that 1 bead it creates a lot of space there, and you don't want to make these so tight that they get squished together at the 2 and reduce that beautiful cascade effect you got going there. So that's why I like to add the 2 right next to where I am doing the subtraction, even down at that single point. So then here on the other side we're going to add the 2 blue. So now we're adding 2, subtracting 1, adding 2, which is the equivalent of our single adding of 1 bead. Now I want to add a little more style element to this one, so I'm going to add a couple more blue, and then here in the middle I think I would like to put a couple of yellow ones. So 1 here, so it lines up with the original background color here. Now obviously it's your design, you do whatever you want with it. I recommend sticking to a simple design first so you can get the pattern down and your stitching technique and understand it, but after that, I mean, it's art. You do whatever with it that makes you happy. I would recommend sticking to a few simple points, such as mind your spacing, mind your tension, understand what's gonna look good, and that's making everything look nice and square, not all bunched up. But other than that, I mean, it's your pattern, it's your design. You make it however you feel inspired to do so. Yeah, I like that. Alright, so here we're going to not get excited. Add 2 blues on that outside blue right there before the point. And then that's our add. And then we're going to subtract. I like to use a nice fat one here. And go through both yellow to add that 1 yellow on top. And then again adding on the other side of that with 2 blue through that first background blue right there. Alright, so you get the point, and I'm going to finish up that hoop and we'll check in after that. So I think what I want to do is wrap it up here shortly. I want to continue with this pattern here, so I think what I would like to do is add our 2x2 beads to the points here of each of these, since the next circle is going to be predominantly our background color. And then after that I'm going to decide what kind of border I would like to put on, if any. So the same pattern as always. I took my thread to exit right here where these two, where the point is on the star. So I'm going to go with 2 of the background colors, go back through, make my stitch, and then back across in the other direction. So I'm going to go around this one and then we'll see what it looks like at the end. So here's the finished rosette. I was considering doing a border around the edge, maybe a darker color, I wasn't sure, or maybe a fringe pattern, but I actually kind of like how it looks now. So because it is a little bit flexible, I'm going to go back through with this thread a few times and straighten up or strengthen up the last couple rows here on the outside. And I'm probably going to back it with a piece of leather, so that'll give it a little bit more structural integrity also, and then turn it into a necklace, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Hello, back again, because I promised you a finished product. Look what I made. So I made a couple of adjustments to what I said before. I did actually end up adding a border. I couldn't resist these gorgeous matte navy beads. I thought it made it look a lot more finished. I did not back it. Instead, I reinforced it a lot, so it has its own stiffness. But I kind of liked that you could see how it was made, and so I left it without a back, and it does maintain its own structure and flatness without needing it. So I thought, why not enjoy it as it is? So these things, this one in particular, took me about a day and halfway through a night. Sometimes projects like this or other projects will take me a lot longer. Like this behemoth, which is still unfinished and has taken me forever. Depending on what I'm making them for, I'll make them during a specific moon phase. Some of my ceremony fans, etc., are made during an entire lunar cycle. Sometimes I'll binge craft over a certain astronomical event or holiday. I'll spend 3 days around a solstice making something. So it depends on what it is that the intention of the piece is, what it is that it's been requested, you know, so that's, I guess, relevant also. This already has also gone through its own little ceremony to cleanse and set its intention, and the joy of this piece is about finding your own inner medicine, your own guidance, and your own sense of center, right? And this is made with all glass check beads and some pieces that are, some of them are silver, some of them are base metal, but they're all really pretty. They're a little different. And of course my little feather charm here is metal also. Some of the pieces that I make are made with natural stones, semi-precious materials. So it just depends on what's requested at the time. But I thought you'd like to see what the finished project actually looks like. So I hope you like it, and if you have any questions or requests, or you'd like to learn how to make something else, or you'd like to want something else, then let me know, and I would love to hear from you. And tell me if you like this video. I realize that I'm still in the process of learning, very much a student in the YouTube arena and video making process, so I know that some of the video quality is kind of ratty, and I know sometimes the sound's a little off, and sometimes the cat jumps on my projects. So let me know in your genius what works for you and what doesn't work for you, so I can continue to make better videos, and tell me what it is what you like. So leave me a comment and tell me if you like the crafting, if you don't care about it, if you'd like to see one angle or another better. I know I switched angles partway through. I don't know if maybe that works for you, what doesn't. Leave me a comment and tell me what worked for you and what you liked and what you didn't like. And I realize now also that this is the grand indicator that it might be time soon to upgrade to a better camera. So let me know what you think, and like, subscribe, all the rest, and leave me some comments and tell me what it is that you like. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.